Oh, great. Like people have started putting. Jyoti's gone first, emotional intelligence, and then Rij, Disha. Thank you so much. Right? Emotional intelligence, right? I think that's it's a good one to start by saying, emotionally feeling like uh, you haven't got this. It's not necessarily a bad place to be in, right? It means that you're connected with your emotions. But before talking about a lot of meta stuff and going down that rabbit hole, um, one thing I wanted to start by saying is I saw the activity that like I think the sharing that you all did a couple of days back on the WhatsApp group. I don't know if you all got a chance to read each other's responses. Did you? Yeah. I think I saw a lot of vulnerability, a lot of great shares. A lot of you were really talking about what exactly was something that you were dealing with in your leadership journey, right? I loved that. I think when I read through, I saw a lot of high responsibility and deep care. A lot of you had spoken about your leaders, your volunteers, your students. You've spoken about the kind of impact you're doing. Something that was visible is like when volunteers ghost you, the pain that you feel, double guessing yourself whether you're doing the impact right or not. Feeling the emotional weight of decisions when you have to make them as a leader, right? Some of you also spoke about self-doubt, I think imposter syndrome, like about your own privilege in the space, your right to lead, whether your decisions are right or not. Some of you spoke about overthinking, second guessing, fear of hurting people, fear of being unfair. Um, I think also impatience under pressure. When volunteers don't show up, when things move slowly, when things lag or energy drops, right? How you're frustrated, exhausted. I think a lot of good deep connection to your own emotions and sharing about them, right? So hopefully we'll be able to um, uh, I think that those are all things that we can talk about, sit and talk for at least one full day. I don't have a full day, so we'll probably talk about some of it today in the 45-ish 2 minutes that we have with each other, right? So one thing that I want to do before we start is to start by saying this 45 minutes will be quite interactive. So I want you all to make sure you're in a space where you can unmute and speak or chat on the chat box so that we can keep it as interactive, right? Because without your responses, I won't be able to move forward. We won't be able to move forward. Something I also want to start by saying is maybe one, like just to keep a couple norms for us. I really like starting the sessions with this. Let's have a 5 second rule, right? A 5 second rule is essentially whenever a question comes up, uh, something that we see on screen or something that I ask to all of you, if you notice a 5 second gap where nobody's really answering that question, it's probably because not because people don't have an answer. It's because people like thought about something, but they're thinking, should I really share this? Somebody else might have a better answer. Right? At that moment, if you see a 5 second gap, I want you to put your answer out there. Right? What that's going to help us to do is to keep our conversation going forward, which is more important than having the perfect answer to share. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. And I want all of you to share as much as possible. Unmute and share if you have the space, or put it in the chat box because we may not have the space to take everybody's share, considering time. But put it in the chat box, so I'll try to read it as many of them as possible. And if you have notes near you where you can take notes, that will be ideal so that you can note down stuff as you have insights, right? Not necessarily things that I say, but things that you might really think when you see a particular thing and you're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I want to write it down. Keep writing that down. Yeah. So far, good with all the norms? Yeah. Whenever you have a question, you can just put that question out there, pause me and say, hey, I have a question. And then we can take that question and talk about it, right? Okay. Let's start. I want to start with this question. Um, right? Before we enter into like talking about emotional intelligence and all that, I want to start with the from a slightly more random place, and I want to see what answers you have. I don't know if you have an immediate answer to this, but I'm curious to see what came to your mind. What do you think you're carrying as a leader?
Hope,
Sorry,
hope,
somebody said hope. Oh, love that. Okay, nice. Starting with hope. Okay, a lot of you said responsibilities. Love that. Okay, responsibilities, hopes, and
support,
dreams. Support, empathy. Love that. Okay. Um, nice. Community. You're carrying the community. Love that answer, Nitish. Not if you said empathy, values, trust, hope, trust, community, responsibility, dependability. Any other answers? I think we said responsibility, dependability, hope, dreams. What else? Collaboration, legacy, change, support. Love that. Faith in the people that you have, being a happy space for the kids. Love those answers. Thank you for sharing. And I think that a lot of those makes a lot of sense, right? Like I also put down a bunch that I thought might come up in this conversation. I think we all spoke a lot about responsibilities, impact. You can probably carry relationships. A lot of times you carry projects in your center. You're the person who's like, okay, I need to drive this somehow, get people to teach this particular lesson or do this group activity. Or I need to like, as a leader, I need to ensure recruitment is happening for my LC. You might have weekly tasks that you're looking into, accountability is something that probably a lot of you spoke about. Vision, dreams, mission, culture, ownership. A lot of stuff came up, right? I love that you're so tuned into what you're carrying as a leader. So I want to ask a slightly different question here. Um, right? Just in the same lines, but I want to add one lens to it, right? To the same question, but I want you to look at it through the lens of your emotions, right? You're adding a filter on top, right? Same question, same statements, but if you put the filter of emotion on top of it, because you're saying emotional intelligence, right? Uh, Now take a moment, don't immediately answer this, but ask yourself for a second, whichever answer you picked and shared. It could be responsibility, it could be hopes and dreams, it could be dreams, it could be some of the answers that you saw on the screen right now. Whichever ones that you related to, take a moment and ask if you put a lens or a filter of emotion on top of it, what's the emotion that you're feeling? If you have an answer, you can actually put it on the chat box or mute it. Okay. Love, care, and empathy is what Pooja's saying. Love that. Thanks, Pooja. Empathy. Okay. Love and trust. Happiness and love. Okay. A lot of love. I love that we're very comfortable using the word love. Joy. People and happiness. Care, freedom, love, satisfaction. Okay, I love that. Satisfaction, inspiration, gratitude. Okay, so I think Prakash saying evolution of progress. I think there's a sense of achievement there, right? The feeling is achievement. Inspiration, love, pride. Oh, I love that pride is also coming out, right? I feel like I have a sense of pride because I did something. Right? Gratitude, love that. Um, when you think responsibilities, I think I'm hearing a lot of positive stuff, right? When you think responsibilities, what other emotions come to your surface? When you think about your center, about, okay, pressure, love that, Amit. Thank you. I love sense of belonging. I think that's something that we all seek. You and I really create that space for us, right? Fear of failure. I don't want to fail. I have a fear about it. Right? Overwhelming. Um, Patience. Mahira is saying accountability, but what's the emotion that comes when you think about accountability? Care of patience, uh, guilt, okay, overwhelming. Okay, I love that. Efforts, safe space. But what are the emotions that are coming for you all when you think about efforts, when you think about safe space? Fear of going wrong. Okay, getting back up. I love that. Creating a legacy. Can't make a mistake, right? That fear, that anxiety that I can't make a mistake. I want us to think about this for a second, right? Nervous, tension. And I hear you, right? I really appreciate you being honest and then sharing this emotion. I want you to think about it for a second, right? Zoom out from your own self and look at yourself as a person, right? Take a step back because it's just for the session and then say, okay, I feel these emotions. I know others feel these emotions also. Giving to you little, I feel a little bit guilty, feel care, or maybe I feel a lot of hope for my center. I feel a lot of love for my people. I feel anxious. I feel tensed. I feel pride in the things that we achieved. I feel a sense of achievement. with all the things that we daily speak about, right? We speak about projects, responsibilities, culture, um, and in a more like this doesn't have to just be you and I. If you go out of you and I, you will hear authority, power, right? In a more uh, like say, for example, in a more corporate space, in at your work or at your college, you might hear slightly more different words associated with leadership, right? Who is responsible for this? Who has the authority to do this? Who has power? Who's the ultimate boss and all that, right? But if you really look at it, and if you're able to put some feelings on top of it, emotions on top of it, these are the emotions plus a lot of the other ones that you had listed in the chat box, right? I want us to take a moment to think about that, right? What is the relationship between your what the first sentence that you said, which is I'm carrying these things, which is my responsibilities, my tasks, my culture, my mission, my vision, my ownership, my impact, my students, and then the emotions that you said after that. What is the relationship between both? This is an open-ended question, so anybody can answer, right? We'll have the 5 second. Okay, the answer's coming up. Because Divya is asking for reiteration, I'll do that, Divya. So my question was, if you didn't get it, what is the relationship between the feelings and emotions you see on screen and the answers that you gave first, which is responsibilities, culture, right? Before we added the filter of emotion and after we added the filter of emotion. In terms of this question, right? I asked you one question earlier. What are you carrying as a leader? When I asked you that, everybody was like, hey, I'm carrying relationship, I'm carrying responsibilities. And then some of you are like, people, I'm carrying the vision for my center. Some of you said, I carry projects, I carry the goals, right? And then when I said, okay, let's add an emotional layer to it, what are you carrying? You all said a lot more emotions, right? Love, fear, anxiety, right? So my question is, what is the relationship between your first answer and your second answer? Um, which one are you really carrying? Okay, to be results of my actions. Okay, working towards what we seek makes us feel those emotions. That's something Kevin's saying, right? I really like that. Um, so I'm carrying the responsibilities of the kids, right? That creates emotions for me. That's something Farhana saying, right? Now it's worth asking that question, right? Because I'm going to introduce a hypothesis to you in this session, and that's the mindset that I want you to carry going forward for the next for the next 30 minutes. Right? Are you all with me so far? Right? Once I introduce the hypothesis, if you have a question, you can ask me, right? So my hypothesis is this, right? What you really carry are your emotions. Right? The reason I'm saying that is when you think about responsibilities, tasks, projects, those are all thoughts in your head, right? Um, but from a biological perspective, as a human being, thoughts are sort of something that happens in our brain that we don't really understand. Emotions are a little bit more real, right? That's my hypothesis, right? That's the hypothesis that I'm going to introduce to all of us. Right? Emotions are real. Why are emotions real? Because we know that in our body there are chemical reactions, right? There are hormones that get released. There are chemicals that get released when we feel emotions, right? When we feel happy, oxytocin. When we feel motivated, dopamine, right? When we feel fear, anxiety, also the different emotions that get released in our body, right? And then you have certain concepts, project, vision, dream, responsibility. These words that we have learned, say school or some books or some other people talk about it, right? And then there are some physical chemical reactions happening in our body. Between these two, which one is real? It's another open-ended question. So, okay, they are saying what you feel. Do all of you agree with that, or does somebody else have a question or a doubt, or you're like, hey, what are you really talking about? And why did you go so deep in the first 5 minutes itself? Okay, Pramati is saying how you feel because it matters how you interpret it. I know you're all confused, right? And that's also my intention. I want you to be confused before we start, right? So you can feel more open about the confused statement that you want to make. Still stick to the 5 second rule. You feel like I'm asking a question and you're seeing everybody else is like, oh, what is he asking? I don't know the answer. Put the first answer that came to your mind, and we'll start with from there. Okay. Ajay is saying mind versus heart. That's actually a really good thing to think about. Okay. Saswati is saying both are real. Thoughts come externally and emotions are the result of it, but completely our own also. But that's a good one to talk about, right? Which ones come first? Do you think thoughts come first or the emotions come first? Bunch of you saying thoughts, bunch of you saying emotions. Nice. Thoughts first, emotions second. Emotions first, thoughts second. Nice. Yeah, I love it when a room is divided, because then we can find some consensus, right? Okay, so um, thoughts try to rationalize the emotions. That's Rohit from Bangalore, right? I think he's giving somewhere with this. Actually, biologically speaking, your emotions come first, right? Because like your emotions give like I think your feelings give rise to emotions. This happens instantaneously because your brain is jumping between like your thoughts are jumping between, right? Like your brain circuitry is jumping between, but what it's really doing is like it's only like jumping between its memory, right? Things it's learned, things it's conditioned to, what kind of schooling you've had, what kind of background you're from, right? Just jumping between that, right? But what happens first is your emotions come, and then your brain tries to process that, and then it's like, okay, this emotion I'm feeling, what could it be, right? And then it's like, okay, this person's not come to the center. That is why I'm feeling this way, right? So actually, what happens is you observe that something out there in the world is happening, and then you feel something about it. Because you feel something about it, your brain makes up a story, right? Which is your thought. And then that is what you live by. Does that make sense? Right? As a person, I observe something out there. It could be that, okay, a volunteer didn't show up to center. Or it could be that I have an exam tomorrow. I have actually not studied at all. Right? Could be that I have an interview coming up and I want to prepare and somehow make it through. Right? Or it could be, okay, this is a conflict that I need to go and sit and resolve, but I'm super anxious because I don't know what I'm going to go and say to them. Right? It could also be, oh, I really love the kids in my center and I want to do something for them. Right? But you first observe something out there in the world. It goes into you, right? And then you feel something about it. After you feel something about it, you form thoughts about it. Does it make sense? Right? That's the hypothesis I'm putting in forward. Right. So for the sake of this session, for the next 25 minutes, you're going to think about emotions first. You're going to connect to your own emotions inside, right? And I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. In general life, you have emotions, right? I have exams, I have like stuff to deal with at home, I have aspirations in my own life, career that I want to set up for, right? People I'm in relationships with, right? What happens for you emotionally as a leader? Okay, overwhelmed. Okay, nice. Thanks, Disha. could be both positive, could be something else also that you're feeling, right? Not so positive also. How do you feel when you put on a leadership hat? Sometimes stressful and hectic, fear, little nervous. Okay, fear. Start thinking about other possible perspectives. Nice. Grateful and happy. I love that positive spin. Responsible, right? Excited but doubtful, inspiring sometimes. Self-doubts, confusion, right? Fear, anxiety, sometimes pride, sometimes fear, sometimes anxious, sometimes confused. A little nervous but excited. I love that, right? Um, Doubtful but can't show it in our face because I'm responsible. Right? Mixed feelings. Responsibility, but I also think, what if I fail, right? Formidable, confused, weight of the center, a lot of mixed emotions, right? No, and something that I want us to acknowledge, right? Now the reason for this is in our general life, we are responsible for a lot of things in our own life that creates a lot of feelings and emotions, positive and negative. And on top of that, you've taken a leadership responsibility, which means you want to achieve something, right? For your center, for your kid, for the kids in your center, for your volunteers, for your leadership team, your chapter leader who trusts you, your manager who trusts you, right? For your own self because you have vision, you have something that you want to achieve, right? And this can apply even outside of you and I, right? At work, at college, right? And what I want to appreciate you today for doing is a lot of times when you feel an emotion, when all of us feel an emotion, I don't know if we have the time to actually sit down and say, okay, this is what I feel, and just acknowledge that with ourselves, right? And your ability to do that, this is called emotional intelligence. Does that make sense? Now, this is quite a complex thing, and a lot of people have written books on it. My favorite book in this matter is this book that you're seeing in the picture. Uh, and if you're interested to like learn more on this is a book that I'll definitely recommend. It's a little bit of a difficult read, but it's quite based on science, so you can actually read it, right? So then the book's called Emotional Intelligence: Why It Matters More Than IQ by Daniel Goleman. This guy, I think he's from Harvard. He's a researcher slash journalist who wrote this book about 25 years ago, and all of the things that he's saying here still stands the test of time, right? I've had to define emotional intelligence. This is how the book defines it, and I'm going to bring the same definition to you. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions, and to recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. Does it make sense? Right? So I'm going to go through, like, for the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to go through some definitions so that you're able to travel with whatever you felt right now, right? And I started with a very vague question. I asked you something. You all had beautiful answers, and then we spoke about, okay, which part of our emotions are real, right? And which part of our experience is real? Okay, I have emotions first, and then I have thoughts. And what do I do with that, right? How do I manage it on a day-to-day basis? Because I feel a lot of things as a leader, um, right? And uh, and that is why this skill is very important. And I would say the shame is also that nobody really talks about this skill when we are in school or college, right? How many of you have heard of IQ before? I think I see a few raised hands. Right? I think a lot of like, okay, do you have IQ to think about this? Right? A lot of people are raising your hands, right? Heard. Okay, nice. Have you all also like the same people? Have you all also heard of EQ? Yeah. Okay, nice. Okay, that's good, right? Um, and I don't know if you all agree, but I think at least in my experience, people don't really talk about EQ as much as they talk about IQ, right? And there's a lot of reasons for it, right? People just over-index towards IQ itself, right? But I might actually argue, especially for the sake of this particular session, that your EQ is actually more important than your IQ because your EQ really decides what you do with your IQ, right? Your ability to manage your emotions, your ability to recognize your own emotions, your ability to add value to others, is what gives context for how you use your own intelligence, right? And this is changing in the world. A lot of current researchers are changing the way that they talk about intelligence quotient. That's why you don't really hear the term IQ that much in social media or anywhere else today, right? Because people are really moving away from that because it gives a very one view for what is intelligence, right? EQ is a more foundational case. In fact, Harvard's standpoint is this: emotional intelligence is the core of leadership, right? And they have a whole set of books and articles that researchers from the institution have written on just this concept, right? So today we're going to spend a little bit of time just learning about how this particular skill can help you as a leader. Okay, I'm just going to pause here to ask any questions, thoughts so far from whatever you've heard. Right? You can also be a little bit confused about, hey, where are you going with this? You can also share that. Oh, love that. Banashri saying she's done a short course on emotional intelligence as part of the psychology syllabus. That's great, right? Like I think if you're doing psychology, you get introduced to this concept. Otherwise, I think a lot of books really don't talk about it. Um, Anybody else? Any thoughts, questions? Or you can say, okay, all good, and then we can move. Okay, love that. Okay, a lot of you are in the all good stage, right? So what we're going to do is quickly look at one tool or one framework for us to think about. And rather than going into this framework and then giving you like a lot of conversation on how to use this framework, we're going to actually apply this through a small activity together, right? Um, okay. So I'm going to give you a quick like run through of this of these four. If you want to take a screenshot, you can take a screenshot of it. But this is a quick framework to just look at emotional intelligence as a concept, right? It falls into four big brackets: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management. And I'm going to rush through this because this part is just good for your awareness. We're not really going to go in deep into any of this, right? We're just going to go into the four big buckets, right? These are four big buckets. Now, the core of emotional intelligence says if you're good at these four, it means that you can be a really good leader, right? Now, what is self-awareness? It's nothing but what you did today on the call, right? You just asked yourself, how do I feel? And you're able to share your perceptions, you're able to share your thoughts, your feelings, right? Self-management is once you understand your own emotion and are you able to act according to your values, your priorities, your goals, right? Hey, I understand I feel this way. I feel afraid or I feel ambitious. Am I able to take that feeling and I'm able to convert it into um, me able to apply it to my goals, me able to apply it to my situations that I'm facing, right? Social awareness. This is the ability to gauge your environment, the people in your environment, and understand their emotions, their needs, their perspectives, right? Relationship management is once you understand all of this, I understand my emotion, I understand, I'm able to manage my own emotions, I understand other people's emotions, and able to manage my relationship with those people. If you're able to do these four things, you can really bucket most of what you have as a leader into these four things, right? Right. If you manage your own emotions, you can manage your stress better, your fear better. You can manage your ability to use your time better, right? Right. Your time management improves drastically once you're able to do your own self awareness and self management better, right? If you understand other people's emotions, your ability to lead them, to go talk to them when volunteers don't show up, have a honest conversation with them, all of that is going to increase, right? So a lot of your ability to do your leadership work can actually be looked through the lens of emotional intelligence as well. It's not just the work that you do, but how you manage your own emotions, right? Okay. But how do I really do this? Okay, you've told us a bunch of theory, but how do I do this? After that, let's jump into a quick exercise, right? I'm going to give you a tool, and this is a tool that you can take back home, right? And we're going to apply this tool for about 10 minutes, right? Let me just take you through the tool once. Now, this is called a emotional intelligence compass, right? Um, what does it help you do? For self-management, you take a particular situation. Um, let's say like all of you can take one, but for the sake of this particular activity, I'm going to take one that I saw commonly across the WhatsApp group when I was reading through, which was, hey, a lot of my volunteers don't show up to the center. What do I do with them? Right? So we're going to take one volunteer that you have had some problem with, or one leader, or somebody who didn't show up that you have had some issue with. I want you to think about them, right? In this particular scenario, what you're going to do is one, before you think about them, you're going to talk about your own self. How do I want to show up as a leader here? Like, what is my like? You're going to start at self-awareness, right? What is happening inside me? How am I feeling? Uh, and what am I scared about? What am I frustrated about? What am I worried about? What do I keep thinking about? Right. Then you're going to do self-management, right? Okay, now that I know this is how I feel, what do I want to do about it? Third one is you're asking how are they feeling? Where are they? Right? What are they struggling with? What is overwhelming them? And then the fourth thing is you're making an action, right? Once I know all of this, what's the conversation I need to have with them? What's the boundary that I want to set with them? What's the support that I want to extend to them? What's the expectation that I want to clarify with them? Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Let's do a round of this. Okay. And I'll just jump into this whiteboard. Right. Okay. Let's start here. Do you all have a person or a situation in mind? You don't need to share the situation because like it's the situation that you are in. But what I do want you to share is I want you to share about these questions, right? Keeping that situation in mind. And I'm assuming this situation is mostly related to somebody not showing up, right? A volunteer not showing up to class, somebody not showing up. Is that okay, or do you want to do a different situation? The situation works, the volunteer not showing up? Yeah. Okay, let's do a round of that. Keeping your volunteer in mind, what I want you to do is answer this first question, right? Self-awareness. What's happening inside you? Like, how do you feel? What are you scared about? Answer this, and I'm going to put it in sticky notes over here. Okay. I love that. Brightney saying, I'm worried, what if I'm not being an understanding person, right? Okay. I love that, Brightney. Thank you. Okay. Drashti saying, a mix of pressure and responsibility. Thanks, Drashti. You're worried that they may not be taking this seriously, right? You're worried about their actions, right? And what does it say about your own like feelings, right? Okay, they are not taking things seriously. What if they are not taking things seriously? How do you feel about that? You feel frustrated. Okay, you're not saying frustrated. Worried about the students. What if they get like distant, right? What are they missing out on? Right? Frustrated. A lot of you have said frustrated. Whether I'm going overboard. Feel like I'm not making the impact as required. Right? Love that. I'm worried I'm not doing things correctly. That's why they're not showing up. Right? Like I'm the problem. Some really honest answers, and I want to just appreciate that the amount of self-awareness you are showing right now, right? What if the volunteers might drop out suddenly, right? That's a fear that I have. Worried, right? A lot of worries, right? Worried about students losing interest, feeling frustrated. At the same time, you feel empathetic, right? I'm frustrated also, I'm empathetic also, right? I'm concerned also, right? Okay. Keep thinking I'm micromanaging them, right? Like, you're worried that you're not giving them freedom. Okay. Worried that everything we built is going to collapse. Love that. Okay. We have a bunch of those, right? Bunch of these things, keep the volunteers in difficult situation and I can't help them, right? Okay. 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 I think we have a good bunch of situations out here. I know more will come, but I keep adding them whenever I can. Um, but in the interest of time, I'm going to ask a follow-up question here, right? Now, you've put down your own feelings first. Now, before you extend your feelings to them and their feelings, and like, see, this is something that we do often, right? I am feeling frustrated, but because I'm in UNI and because I'm also like taught to lead this way, I need to like keep my feelings hidden and then think, okay, what are they going through first? And there is a small, like, there's a good thing here, which is this is how you're supposed to deal with it. You're supposed to be a leader, extending your leadership to them. But there's a small caveat in doing this. What is that? What's the caveat in like taking your feelings and being like, okay, let me not listen to them. Let's just first listen to them, listen to the other person first. Not giving them a good experience. Okay, I think it's still a fear. But do y'all hear my question? Yeah. So what's the caveat there? What's the problem in doing? Problem in not dealing with your own emotions or listening to them first, and this first thinking, how can I help that person? Right. And I'm benevolent, like how can I be that like saint? Okay, who'll go and help them and listen to them. Like I need to be empathic. What's the problem with that? It's actually saying I want to respond with calm, not control. Okay, love that. 5 second rule, guys. Yeah. So my question is, Disha, putting yourself in their shoes before you acknowledge your own emotions. What's the problem with that? Should you do that? Okay, love that. They are saying not showing up for yourself, your own self, right? And I want us to think about that for a second. Do you all feel like there are situations where, as a leader, you are not showing up for your own self? Yeah, have you ever been in that space? I'm seeing a few people nod, right? Well, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, yes," right? And that's something that I want us to think about, right? Because if you jump to your social awareness before self-awareness and self-management, that's going to cause some troubles for you, right? Number one, it really increases your stress, right? If you are putting your own emotions down, chances are like you're easily increasing your stress by 4 times, right? Because you're not acknowledging them, you're not sitting with them, right? The other thing is it doesn't allow you to show up properly for them because constantly when you're there to listen to them, you're not really hearing them, right? Uh, right? It's very hard to hear somebody else if you're not heard to yourself. Right? Now there's an important step that a lot of times we skip as leaders, which I want us to bring back attention to, right? Which is the first step, which is that the first thing is you need to first sit down and then just think about your own emotion. Second one is once you've thought about your emotions, ask yourself, okay, this is the emotion I'm feeling, right? And this is what I want to choose to do with my own emotion. Right? I want to show up as this. I want to stand up for. I want to live by this value, or I want to make this particular change. Right? Now, this is another question I'm introducing here. Take the same emotion that you shared in the chat box and ask yourself, keeping this emotion real for yourself, what do you want to do for yourself? Right? That's your second question. Right? I share an emotion, which is part of the sticky note. Keeping that emotion in mind, how do I want to show up as? Same 5 second rule applies. If you start putting your options, I'll also guide us through it. Right? Okay, give myself enough space and grace to process stuff. This is very important, right? Okay. I pause, feel, choose, and then I lead. Love that, Rashmi. What else? What else would you do, like based on your own emotions, right? Okay. Choose to be more organized, right? Communicate your tasks and requirement better. You want to be a better listener. Okay, love that. Okay, pause, brain dump, stabilize, start again, right? Okay, nice. Don't jump to conclusions. Okay, love that, right? A lot of you said, okay, I'm thinking, are they not serious about things, right? But before jumping to that conclusion, just or ending up in self-blame, I'm not doing something. I'm the problem, right? When you face those feelings, even if you just take a second to write it down, you immediately recognize, okay, I'm not supposed to feel this way. I'm not supposed to blame myself, right? So this is an important step for you to lead through your own stress. Like you're telling yourself, okay, I talk to them, I have one conversation, I'll understand the problem. That'll really help, right? Having clarity about what you want to communicate. Okay. thinking about how I want to show up. Something Brittany is speaking about. Now, I have a follow-up question here because I love these answers that are coming up, right? So I'm just curious. So let's say that you are in this position where you feel these emotions, and you're like, okay, I need to talk to them first, one-on-one, and understand if they're facing any problems. What happens then? So my first question is actually, how many of you, the person that you have in mind right now, you've actually gone and spoken to them? If you've gone and spoken, you can say, I've spoken. The other person, if you're not, then you can say, I've actually not spoken yet. Okay, Bagi saying I have spoken, nice. Okay, love that. You have tried. Okay, Vaishnavi saying you've tried. Have any of you not spoken? I also want to talk about like people who have not tried speaking. Okay, a lot of you are saying you've tried speaking, right? So what happens after that? Does it get resolved as soon as you try speaking? No? Okay, a lot of you are shaking your head like, no, it's not resolved. Okay, a lot of you are saying no. Okay, let's talk about that, right? So now we've done the first two steps. And since you're ultra leaders, all of you are doing the first two steps really well. Right? I love that, right? So let's do the next two steps, right? What are they feeling? Because you've spoken to those people already, you're thinking about a person in your mind. You're not just thinking concept. So let's stay with the same person that you're thinking about. Tell me, with social awareness, this box, what are they feeling? What might they be afraid of? This is where you use your empathy, right? You're aware of your own emotions. You're frustrated. You're like annoyed, right? You want to swear at them, but you can't because it's not a culture. You're like, okay, I'll manage my own emotions. I'll communicate better. I'll go talk to them. That you're putting the responsibility on yourself. That's more weight, right? Now let's think about them for a little bit. What are they feeling? What are they afraid of? What are they struggling with? What might they be overwhelmed by? Okay, they might be thinking, okay, I'm letting people down also. Okay, nice. They feel guilty too. Okay, they might need reassurances than instruction. Okay, they're not confident. Okay, I love that. They're feeling confused or overwhelmed. Okay, they may not have the same seriousness that I have. Okay, that's a really good one, right? And that's good to actually validate when you feel that way about a person. To actually sit with them, talk with them, look at their behavior, and say, okay, maybe they're not that serious. How do I talk to them about it? Right? They're not understanding the responsibility. They might be overwhelmed by the responsibility. They do not grasp the situation the same way you do. Okay? Their awareness. If you notice something here, a lot of your answers are about their own awareness of their responsibility, their situation, their own feelings, right? And that's a situation that you will find yourself in a lot of times as a leader because you're thinking, okay, I'm able to manage myself. Somebody else is not. They're saying they'll come to the center, but they're not coming. They're saying they'll come on time. They're not coming. They're not responding to my messages properly. What do I do right now? Right. And this is a really important place to jump into your final one, right? Your relationship management, right? This is where you have conversations that need to be had, boundaries that need to be set, support that you can offer, expectations that you need to clarify, right? Now, the same person that you're thinking about, you've gone through a full emotional journey. You've thought about your emotions. You've thought about how you can manage your own emotions better. Thought about their emotions, what they're going to. Now let's come to the action that you're going to make, right? What is the action? You've also spoken to some of these people. What are some actions that you can take, keeping all of these things in mind? And something to remember here is this action you shouldn't just take from a position of power. I am a leader. I can let them go. I am a leader. I can go put one serious like thump on them and then be like, hey, listen to me properly, right? Not just that. Right? You're actually empathizing with them. You're like, okay, they are in this situation. They're confused. They're not sure. Or maybe they are not that serious. And then you're asking yourself, what can I do here? Okay, connecting with them personally. Love that. Okay, clear out expectations. Okay, clear out expectations. Right, I love that. Active listening. Okay.
Akshay, just time check.
Yeah, got it. Thanks, Vision. Giving them a benefit of doubt, hearing them out. Okay, see, let's say that you've done this. Does it work? You've listened to them, right? You've clarified things to them, kept expectations low, and then had a buddy for them. Right? You're saying, okay, I'll support you. You're connecting with them personally. Has it worked? Yeah. If it's worked for you, like yeah, it's worked. I've solved. Okay, then great. Everybody's happy, right? Reminding them the cause. Okay, it's a hit or a miss. Okay, it doesn't work sometimes, right? Not actually. Okay, some of you are saying yes, some of you are saying no, right? So let's talk about the times when it's no, right? Already here, 80% of your problems are gone. This is because a lot of your stress comes from this space, right? If you're connected with your own emotions, their emotions, what to do and all that, and you're going into like dealing with a situation, actually sitting and having a conversation with them, and you're not just going randomly like one day pulling them out. You're actually preparing for this, sitting and writing it down on your notebook, and then going and talking to them. You would already likely solve 80% of the problems, right? Now, then talking about the 20% of the people who it doesn't work with, what do you do then? What do you do then if it doesn't work with them? The conversation or the empathizing doesn't work with them. What do you do then? Use chaps and managers. Love that. Like bring my boss. Right? Say, hey, listen to me, or I'll talk to the next person. Get if it escalates, then get back when both are emotionally grounded. That's good. Like if your conversation goes south, stop it because maybe you're not prepared, they're not prepared. Give them some time and get back to it, right? Okay, I love what Dia's saying. Feels like Dia's already seen some of my PPT. Okay, so set clear and stern boundaries with them, right? The first step here, if you look at the screen that I'm showing, relationship management, is the conversation you need to have. Second one is the boundary that you need to set, right? Now, this is something that I want you to take up. And if you, from this whole conversation, taking up just this one thing, I would still say you would have gained something out of this whole session, which is what boundary do you set? Okay. I know you need to inform your chaps, I know you need to inform your manager, but this is something that you can do yourself, right? When you have a conversation with them, a lot of times something that we don't do is we tell them, hey, this is very important, please do it. But you also don't set a boundary, right? A boundary has conditions, right? Hey, you haven't shown up for three classes, right? And in you and I, we have a three-strike rule, right? In the next 3 weeks, I expect you to show up every week. If you don't show up every week for the next 3 weeks, we would unfortunately have to replace you. Does it make sense? Right? It's easy when somebody's not showing up. Let's say somebody is constantly hurting your feelings, right? Right. Then what boundary do you want to set there? It really depends on the context, but I'm just going to give you an example, right? Say somebody is being rude and they're not being appreciative of your feelings, right? Then you sit and have a conversation and say, hey, I want to set a boundary here. There's something that I'm not comfortable with, right? If you cross this boundary again, I have to involve my chapter leader or manager in here. Okay. But when you do it with a lot of empathy and a lot of kindness. Does it make sense? Right? Boundary setting is the part where a lot of times as a leader, our stress gets added because we don't know what boundary to set. Right? And when we finally break and then go and set a boundary, we set it like this. Right? We're like, hey, if you don't come to center, I will not allow you into center. But that's not a boundary, right? That's an ultimatum. Does it make sense? Right? So big part of your emotion management is to know what is at the end of this emotion, what is the outcome, and how do I set a boundary for it, right? Then you can offer support, right? For the same volunteer who's not showing up, in this case, you can say, hey, for the next 3 weeks, I will support you. Do you want weekly reminders? You want me to get on a call, right? But if those 3 weeks you don't show up, I'm going to have to let you go. Right? But I'm willing to support you those 3 weeks. You want to want me to help you plan lessons? I'll do all of that, right? But if you don't show up, I'm going to let you go. And then you ask, are we on alignment? Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you agreeing to it? Right? Get their agreement also. This means both of you are agreeing to something equally. Does that make sense? Right? Right. So I've given you one example. And for the lack of time, I'm not going to go into a lot more, right? But this is an exercise that I want, like, we'll share this tool with you also, that I want you to do with the next time you face a situation like this with your own emotions, right? Can be a situation, can be a person, can be a chat leader, can be a volunteer who's not showing up, can be anybody. I want you to just simply sit with yourself for 10 minutes with a notebook, right? Take these same four boxes and ask, okay, how am I feeling right now, really? What am I feeling right now? Right? How do I manage myself? Like, what do I want to do in this situation? Right? For myself, what are they feeling? Like, who are they? What is probably going on in their head? What is something that might be bothering them? And then ask yourself, what do I want to do here? Have I had a conversation? Can I go have a conversation with them? What boundary do I want to set here? What support do I want to offer to them? What expectations do I want to clarify? Right? 99% of your problems as a leader with people will get resolved if you are able to hold this to its line. Right? Does it make sense? Right? Now, this is one tool I want to leave you with today. And we're also at 9:11. So I know that we're around the end of our time. Right? So I'm going to close with this one thought, right? But before I go into that, any questions on the tool itself? Yeah? Okay, cool. I would love to hear some of your feedback because I know that this is just a 40-minute thing. I've just done one tool with you. There are a lot of tools in the book if you want to explore them. But I would love to hear some of your feedback later on the feedback form of like, do you see this as something that's useful for you? What problems do you anticipate this being solved? One thing I do want to share is I love the different answers that you put on the chat box. A lot of times when you once you acknowledge them, these feel like um, like uh, they feel like um, the answers themselves feel like, okay, it's common sense, right? This is what I'm feeling. But in the spur of the moment, we react instead of actually taking a step back. And that's where emotional intelligence comes, right? We call this maturity. And maturity is the space between your impulse and the action that you're taking. You have an emotion, you have a feeling, you have an impulse. If you're able to give some space, think about it, and then take a conscious action, that is something that we call as maturity, right? And emotional intelligence deals with a lot of that maturity. Right? So I want to end with this, like just to launch you off, right? Um, okay, this guy's called. Do any of you know who this is? Frederick Taylor. Have you heard of him before? Yeah, no, no. I'm guessing no because not a very famous guy uh, at this level. Right? Okay, cool. So I'm going to quickly tell you who he is. Frederick Taylor is. You can call him as the like probably the father of leadership or father of management as we know it today, right? Um, so he was alive in the around the 1800s. A lot of today's leadership management factories, how they are run, how companies are run, big corporations are run based on his principles, whatever he said, right? He's the first guy who introduced a stopwatch and a clock to a factory and said, okay, people need to work from this time to this time. I'm going to run a stopwatch. This is how you're supposed to do your work. If you don't do your work, somebody will come talk to you. You have a manager, you have a boss. Your boss is going to do this, your manager is going to do this. All of that framework he only built, right? Um, and like today's lot of leadership principles that you learn is based on what he's done, right? Uh, because he did that, and because he's American also, like, America's wealth really grew because they were built on his principles. The world also got a lot richer. People got a lot more money because those principles were copied later, right? And there are so many other leadership thinkers who've come after that who've written many, many books, all of it based on his principles of how he said the world should be running, right? And the world is a better place because of all of this, right? Why do you think I'm saying all of this? Scientific management techniques. Yes, exactly. Why do you think I'm saying all of this to you? Quick guess. This is like if you read like if you get into management, get into MBA, you'll definitely hit this name at some point, right? In the history of management, right? Okay, science into action. Love that. Okay, right? This is what science can do for us, right? But I have a little bit lied to you, right? This is what the stories and books talk about, but it's not really fully true. Yes, this is to a large extent true, right? He did help build all of this. But if you actually go back to the 1900s, 1800s and then look at what was going on during his time when this revolution was happening, right? You also notice that there was a lot of strikes, right? Daily workers who came out and did strikes and said, hey, we need our minimum wage, right? You're not treating us like people. There was a lot of fraud that was happening at the same time. right? The people he was working with were minting money, right? This did happen. Wealth did increase, but wealth increased a lot for rich people, right? The rich got richer, but wealth did not get shared with everybody else, right? And there's also something to understand about this guy itself, Frederick itself, is that his principles are based around a lot of just anxiety management. Right? Because people also observed, like later when people did a lot of history on him, they also observed that he as a person is very anxious, right? He likes to control all of the outcomes, right? So he didn't really bring in a lot of emotional intelligence into the rooms that he brought management principles to. He only said, okay, scientifically, if you're able to manage a process line, if you're able to manage a factory, then people will fall in line. If people fall in line, productivity will happen. In a lot of ways, because he built that 200 years ago and we are conditioned to it, we still think of that, right? We still think, okay, a leader doesn't show up, I'll go tell them you're supposed to show up, right? Um, we still think from a lot of power language. We see that in colleges. We see the way staff treats it in college, boss treat it at work, right? Um, in a lot of ways, the principles that he brought in has influenced culture across the world, right? And a lot of it is because he didn't really bring in emotions to the center. In fact, he's famously known to say emotions don't belong in a workspace, right? At the same time, there was another person called Mary Parker Follett, right? She was also a great business thinker, similar time period, and she was also an activist and a social worker, right? Something that she was for is she wanted a lot of women to come into the workforce, right? She believed in equality. She believed in women and men working together back in the 1800s when it was not famous for doing that at all, right? She was fighting men at that point. And then her workspaces include a lot of power sharing, right? She was for unionization. She wanted workers to have unions and work together with leaders of organizations. She was for wealth sharing. Her principles never flew because her principles are a lot more difficult to act because she stood on the hill of emotion should belong in the workspace, right? And something for us to wonder is 200 years ago, if people listened to her instead of him, maybe the world would be slightly different from what it is today, right? And knowing this after many hundred years today, when we are here today, right? Something for us to ask ourselves is, do you want to live in a world that's like Frederick's, or do you want to live in a world that's like Mary Parker's? Right? You want to bring emotions into your center and open them up so that people are able to manage themselves better, including you. Right? And that's a journey to take, right? You want to challenge a world where most organizations and most cultures think like Frederick, and you want to bring in a little bit of Mary Parker into it. Right? That's a bit of an emotional journey to take, right? She's famously known to saying this: leadership is not defined by the exercise of power, but by the capacity to increase the sense of power among those led. Right? How powerful do your people feel under your leadership is what leadership is. And the most essential work of leaders is to create more leaders. Right? And that's the thought that I want to leave you with also. Thanks a lot for staying with me today through this. And I'll throw the mic to JJ.
Yes, thanks, Akshay, for that beautiful launch and that session. And thank you for coming at last moment. He's traveled from Chennai to Bangalore and still he did the session for us. Thank you for that. And we are not done yet, folks. Please don't drop off. We have some really exciting news. And before that, this was our last session, and I hope all of you enjoyed it. There are few people who made this entire thing possible. Any guesses who are those people? They were always hosting and everything. Uh, is there Kanchan? Yeah, here are the heroes who made this possible. Exactly. Kanchan, Layana, and where is Aruj? Yeah, Aruj is there. So these are the people who made this possible. Even they all joined, we started just 10 days before the first session. And because of them, it was possible to have such great sessions, such great speakers and everything. And there is one more person we need to thank, but she isn't there on this call. So you can use the group to, give her an AFI, our Ultra Leaders group. Her name is Bhavani. She is the person who built the software website and Airtable base for her. She couldn't join today. She was little occupied commitments. So if you want, please do affirm her in the groups by saying thank you, Bhavani, because she made it all possible. And I really hope you all enjoyed. And you can personally text all the people who made this possible. I have mentioned their names. Also, Ramiz Anna is here. I hope he's here. He was here. So yeah. if you want, they're all there on the group. You can personally text them if you enjoyed the sessions, and don't drop off. There is really exciting news, and I think Aruj is going to share it with you. Aruj and Kanchan, over to you, folks.
Thanks, JJ. Thanks for
Thank
all
you.
the navigation and all the coordination. Purush, over to you.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I really wanted to reintroduce you to the website, the software website that JJ was talking about, that Bhavani had built for us. I'll share my screen just a second. So we have sent a link across to all of you wherein you have to log in using your email IDs, and you'll be able to access all the resources, all the forms, session forms, post work 1, 2, and 3. Everything is available on this website. So you all can explore, you all can go and check them out. These are your resources from session 1 that was done by Rami, session 2 that was done by Ajit. And for your form access, you can also use the website. That's about the website.
Folks, some really cool resources are out there. It was personally given by Ramesh and Ajit that you can check out. And I know all of you enjoyed the session, but due to limitations, we couldn't take it for 2 hours. To compensate for that, we have put down some few videos and few more resources that you can explore. So please do and check out the website. And thanks, Aruj. Kanchan will make the final.
Over to Kanchan.
Thanks, Aruj. But before we really wrap up, I know what some of you are thinking. What's next? What are we doing? All of that. So I've got answers for all of your queries. So yeah, now what? This is more of a fun part for all of you. Just take a quick note. For over the past weeks, say that JJ was one of the participants, and he's signed up for Ultraleaders, and he's shown up, he's engaged throughout, he's put in a lot of work beyond the sessions, all the post works is done. And that's all of you, all, right? And the results and all of that will be out very soon. So here's what it takes for JJ to be certified as an Ultraleader. That is all of you. What it takes to actually officially get certified as an Ultraleader. Here's just quick things. You need to have attended all the sessions. You need to have completed all the post works, and your participation in every call is a bonus, and that truly sets you apart. So make sure to go fill out all and go complete all of your post works. And if you haven't, now's the time to do that. Your post work for this particular session will be out very soon. We will also share the link for that. Now say that JJ has done all of it. And yeah, that's how you get certified as an Ultraleader. That's how it looks like. And just when you think like, okay, certificate, nice, but let me tell you, there is a little more than just a certificate. There's something more, something a little exciting. There is a surprise, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. So stay with us, folks, and stay tuned. Thank you all for joining. It was amazing to see all of you consistently show up and learn more. And I loved being part of this. So thank you.
Thank you, folks. Good night.
Thank you, everybody.